Hi, my name is Nigina Rakhmatilaeva, and today I'm going to tell about Slavic countries. More precisely, I will start from Ukraine. So, Ukraine country located in Eastern Europe, the second largest on the continent after Russia. The capital is Kiev, located on the Dnieper River in north-central Ukraine. Official name Ukraine, form of government unitary multi-party republic with a single legislative house, head of state president, and official language Ukrainian. Ukraine is bordered by Belarus to the north, Russia to the east, the Sea of Azov and the Black Sea to the south, Moldova and Romania to the southwest, and Hungary, Slovakia, and Poland to the west. Ukraine is separated from Russia by the Kerch Strait, which connects of Sea of Azov to the Black Sea. It covers an area of 603,628 kilometers square, with a population of about 43,498,771, and is the eighth most populous country in Europe. So the next slide about Ukrainian culture of communication. I will start from family. Family plays an important role in Ukrainian life. It's not uncommon for grandparents to live with the family and to play an active role in bringing up children. As such, there tends to be strong intergenerational bonds in Ukrainian family life. From an external perspective, Ukrainian parents can sometimes be perceived as overly protective, but it's a natural part of their parental attitude. So, direct and indirect communication. Ukrainians tend to use a mixture of direct and indirect communication depending on their relationship with one another. The greater the familiarity, the higher the level of direct communication. When meeting of your Ukrainian counterpart for the first time, it's likely that they will use more indirect and polite communication, but once a relationship has been established, it's common for Ukrainians to adopt a more direct approach. So what about time? Time Ukrainians generally have a flexibility towards time. When working with your Ukrainian counterparts, you should bear in mind that people may arrive 5 to 10 minutes late for a business meeting. Also, this is made for individuals of different hierarchical status. For social situations, this may extend to 15 minutes. Also, schedules and appointment can change quite regularly, so be prepared for last-minute changes. So, doing business in Ukraine. Ukraine is a nation that welcomes foreign business and investment and has the potential to become a major European player. A strong agricultural base, abundance of natural resources, and capacity for industrial production combined with its large education and highly skilled workforce make it an increasingly attractive location for business. Anyone doing business in Ukraine must, however, be aware of the challenges they may face as a result of government interferences, corruption, lack of law enforcement, and cultural differences. So, working in Ukraine, people of higher professional status don't have to be as punctual as their subordinates, so don't be surprised if you are kept waiting for a superior. Although your Ukrainian counterparts may arrive anywhere between 5 and 20 minutes late, depending on their status, you should always aim to arrive on time. So many Ukrainians are accustomed to multitasking. If your counterpart takes a phone call, write emails, or talk with other colleagues in a meeting, try to exercise patience and cultural understanding. This is not intended to be rude, but rather it's perceived as more efficient. In traditional Ukrainian companies, you may find that senior businessmen made decisions without consulting their subordinates. Relationships are highly important in Ukrainian business culture, and even so, managers consider the candidate's specific skills and knowledge. So, working relationship in Ukraine. Problems with Ukrainian counterparts are best discussed in private. Resolving conflict in public is likely to increase tension and worsen the problem. If your Ukrainian counterparts suddenly become formal with you after and have established a relationship, it's possible that there has been a misunderstanding or mistake. Always try to clarify and resolve the situations privately and quickly to ensure things don't become worse. In business meetings, Ukrainians are more likely to start the discussion with a holistic overview. Once they have considered the perspectives, they will then move on to discuss the information in greater detail. Don't be surprised if you hear your Ukrainian colleagues saying no a lot. They will often respond with no. At the beginning of the discussion, may be moved to say yes or maybe as the discussion progresses. Perceive with your Ukrainian counterparts to a certain whether or not really mean no. So, in addition, in Ukrainian business environments, it's customary for people to greet each other with a handshake. At an initial meeting in Ukraine, you may be expected to introduce yourself formally with your name, organization, and position. Sometimes you may be asked for these introductory details in emails or telephone conversation as a meeting is being planned. Ukrainians tend to prefer to know as much about the content of a meeting as they do the details of attendance prior to a meeting. There are some tips. Ukrainian business etiquettes do make direct eye contact when speaking to your Ukrainian counterparts. Do take the time to develop trust and build relationship with your Ukrainian counterparts before a negotiation process. Do check company policy before giving gifts to your Ukrainian counterparts. Don't initiate a conversation about politics with your counterparts and consider what you say carefully when someone else initiates a conversation around this or other sensitive topics. Don't be surprised if your Ukrainian counterparts stand quite close to you in conversation, as this is most likely as a result of their desire to conduct conversation in a quiet manner. So the next slide about internet speed. In this slide, we can see statistics about internet speed from 2008 to 2021. Amount of internet users given in percentage. Obviously, we can see considerable growth of the period. So the next slide about hostess dimension, which consists of 6 parts: power distance, individualism, masculinity, uncertainty avoidance, long-term orientation, and indulgence. Firstly, power distance is defined as the extent to which the less powerful members of institutions and organizations within a country expect and accept the power is distributed unequally. Ukraine scoring 92 is a country where power holders are very distant in a society, being the largest country entirely within Europe and being for almost a century part of the Soviet Union. Ukraine developed as a very centralized country. The second one is individualism. The fundamental issue addressed by the dimension is the degree of interdependence a society maintains among its members. It has to do with whether people's self-image is defined in terms of I or we. In individual societies, people are supposed to look after themselves and their direct family only. In collectivist societies, people belong to inner groups that take care of them in exchanging for loyalty. What about masculinity? A high score on this dimension indicates that society will be driven by a competition, achievements, and success, with success being defined by the winner, best in field, a value system that starts in a school and continues throughout organizational behavior. A low score on the dimension means that the dominant values in society are caring for others and quality of life. The fundamental issue here is what motivates people wanting to be the best of or liking what you do. Ukrainians relatively low score of 25 may surprise with regards to its preference for status symbols, but these are in Ukraine related to the high power distance. As a second glance, what one can see that Ukrainians at workplace as well as when meeting strangers rather understand their personal achievements, contributions, or capacities. So the next is uncertainty avoidance. The dimension of uncertainty avoidance has to do with the way that a society deals with the fact that future can never be known. The extent to which the members of a culture feel threatened by ambitious or unknown situations that have created beliefs and institutions that try to avoid this reflected in the score of on uncertainty avoidance. Scoring 95, Ukrainians feel much more threatened by ambitious situations. Presentations are either not prepared, when negotiations are being started and the focus is on relationship buildings or extremely detailed and well prepared. Also detailed planning and briefing is very common. Ukrainians prefer to have context and background information. So long-term orientation. This dimension describes how people in the past as well as today relate to the fact that so much that happens around us cannot be explained. In societies with a normative orientation, most people have a strong desire to explain as much as possible. In societies with a pragmatic orientation, most people don't have a need to explain everything. Ukrainian score 86, which means that it's a very pragmatic culture. In societies with a pragmatic orientation, people believe that truth depends very much on situation, context, and time. They show an ability to adapt traditions easily to changed conditions, a strong propensity to save and invest, thriftness, and perseverance in achieving results. The next is indulgence. One challenge that confronts humanity now and in the past is the degree to which small children are socialized. Without socialization, we don't become human. This dimension is defined as the extent to which people try to control their desires and impulses based on the way they were raised. Relatively weak control is called indulgence. A relatively strong control is called restraint. Cultures can therefore be described as indulgent or restrained. The restrained nature of Ukrainian culture is easily visible through its very low score of 14 on this dimension. Societies with a low score in the dimension have a tendency to cynicism and pessimism. So, the next slide about social networks. The social media states in Ukraine are represented in the graph below. We can see that as of May 2021, the most popular social network in Ukraine was Facebook, which was regularly used by 61.63% of survey participants. Pinterest ranked second with a share of 11.32%. The remaining proportions take position with no more than 8.28%. And finally, I finished my presentation. Thank you. The next student can start. Can you see?
Yes. Well, let's start. Well, my name is Said Akbar, and my surname is also Tahir. As I mentioned below, today I'm going to research the theme of Slavic countries. Exactly one of them is called Poland by using analysis of business communication, and my presentation will is included by direct marketing and cultural dimension. Let's start our presentation. Turn to next. Well, direct marketing is a popular enterprise exercise in Poland, as it's far in different in European Union countries, and Polish clients are familiar with shopping through the internet by using platforms, and more than half of Polish citizens and organizations use direct marketing to promote their merchandise and services, and also they use maximum regularly used DM codexes, and they are electronic mail and net marketing and TV advertising and telemarketing and so on and so forth. And communication is possibly the maximum vital issue of doing commercial enterprise, but we generally tend to take it without any consideration while doing commercial enterprise in our personal Uzbekistan, for example, due to the fact we are coping with human beings from our personal culture. Well, let's start with face-to-face verbal exchange. You can turn next. Well, Polish enterprise human beings are usually formal and fairly quiet, and so their verbal exchange behavior is in all likelihood to be extra reserved at the primary meeting. Important commercial enterprise problems have to be mentioned in individual and common visits, and contact calls are critical to set up the enterprise courting and foundation for a written settlement. Police keep direct eye touch and require approximately an arm's durations of private area for comfort. They typically say what they assume and get directly to the point. They don't genuinely make jokes throughout the primary meetings. Jokes are left for greater social occasions. Polls do no longer typically communicate in a noisy voice. However, they are nevertheless self-assured and decisive. Well, turn to next. Language matters. Poles are nicely knowledgeable, especially professional and technically very competent. They will be inclined to comply with regulations and cling to anticipated protocols. Polish is the reliable language. However, maximum Polish talk multiple language due to its proximity to many different countries. For example, Russian, Germany, and English are the maximum distinguished overseas language spoken with enterprise frequently performed in English, in which participants' first language isn't always Polish. Most Polish talk English, and despite the fact that they may not talk it fluently, they may be capable of communicate. Many employers sense that the extra language an applicant speaks, the better. So it's it's far important to communicate to have understanding of at least one overseas language while making use for activity for with somebody. Well, turn to next. Business dating and making touch. Foreign businesses inquisitive about making an investment and in Poland can achieve applicable records from neighborhood business associations. When drawing near a Polish organization for the primary time, it's miles really helpful to apply written communications to save you misunderstandings and keep away from problems that may be found in different modes of conversation. On receipt of a reply, it's going to be viable to gauge whether or not there is a supervisor that speaks English, and what can be exceptional approach of asking for a face-to-face meeting. International galas also are very beneficial that allows you to discover and set up preliminary contacts. The maximum well-known ones are, well, turn to next. Um, Personal titles. There continues to be a sturdy tendency to apply character titles in Polish society. Until invited to do otherwise, guys must be addressed as Pan, Mr., and also women are called Penny, and also seldomly they use Panna as a miss. Except talking to a child, all girls ought to be known as Penny. It's vital to recognize that during a few instances, the finishing of a surname will extract relying on gender. When addressing a supervisor or high degree executive, you ought to now no longer drop the Mr. or Mrs. in favor of the usage of their task identify as that is taken into consideration route. And business suggestion for starters of business in Poland. Business etiquette. Business etiquette makes a specialty of the behavior deemed suitable in an expert placing, and also you will be much more likely to make an first rate effect on humans you encounter in case you hold a expert approach. And when you commence to start your business in Poland, you must know basic suggestions. For example, greetings need to encompass an organization handshake and direct eye touch. If there are some of humans, they have to all be greeted individually instead of a fashionable wave or nod of acknowledgement. Men ought to anticipate a girl to increase her hand, and Polish guys will every so often kiss a girl's at the hand as a signal of respect. Well, turn to next, cultural dimensions. Cultural dimensions is start with power distance and end with indulgence. Let's turn to next slide. This is the sizes of every strategies of cultural dimension. It starts with power distance. This size offers with the truth that everyone people in societies aren't equal. It expresses the mindset of the tradition toward those inequalities among us. Power distance is described as the volume to which the much less effective participants of establishments and companies inside a rustic count and or on and be given that energy is sent inequally. And also the 68% is demonstrates the way that humans take delivery of a hierarchical order wherein everyone has an area and which wishes not similarly justification. Well, individualism. This essential trouble addressed with the aid of using this size is the diploma of interdependence society keeps amongst its participants. It has to do with whether or not human self-picture is described in phrases of I or we. In individualist societies, human beings are speculated to appearance after themselves and their direct own circle of relatives only. In collectives, societies, humans belong to in group that content with them in trade for loyalty. Well, masculinity. Excessive rating of masculine is this size suggests that the society may be pushed via way of means of opposition, fulfillment and achievement, with achievement being described through the winner and quality in field. A cost of machine that begins of evolved in college and maintains at some stage in organizational existence. Poland rankings 64 is the measurement and is hence a masculine society. The masculine nations humans stay as a way to paintings. Managers are anticipated to be decisive and assertive. The emphasis is on equity, opposition, and overall performance, and conflicts are resolved through combating them out. Uncertainty avoidance means the size has to do with the manner that a society offers with the truth that the destiny can in no way be known, have to be strive to manipulate the destiny or simply allow it happen. This ambiguity brings with it tension, and exceptional cultures have to learn to cope with this tension in specific ways. Well, in 93 rankings for that reason has a completely excessive desire for warding off uncertainty. Countries showing excessive uncertainty avoidance keep inflexible codex and codes of perception and behavior and are illiberal of unor- unorthodox unorthodox behavior and ideas. In those cultures, there is an emotional want for guidelines, even though the regulations in no way appear to paintings. Time is money. Well, long-term orientation. This measurement describes how each society has to keep a few hyperlinks with its own very own beyond, even as coping with the demanding situations of the existing and destiny. Normative societies which rating low in the size, for example, choose to hold time, honor traditions and norms, whilst viewing societal extract is suspicion. Uh, Poland's low rating 38 on this measurement way it's far extra normative than pragmatic and people in such societies have a robust subject with setting up absolutely the truth. They are normative of their thinking. They show off exceptional appreciate for traditions and also indulgence. One task that confronts humanity now and was inside the beyond is this diploma to which small youngsters are socialized. Without socialization, we do no longer become human. This size is described as the volume to which humans try and manage their goals and impulses, primarily based totally at the manner they have been raised. And with a low rating of 29, Polish subculture is certainly considered one among restrained societies with a low rating in this measurement. They will be inclined to pessimism and optimism. Also, in comparison to indulgent societies, restrained societies no longer place plenty emphasis on enjoyment time and manipulate the gratification in their dreams. People with this orientation have the belief that their movements are restrained with the aid of using social norms and sense that indulging themselves is quite wrong. Well, turn to next. Thank you so much for participating, attending in my presentation. Thank you.